What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to this Anfield Agenda International Break special, where I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons of the multi-club model. As you may or may not know, Michael Edwards was brought back into the fold with FSG to go out there into the world and find some clubs for FSG to buy to enter into a multi-club model system. They have since done their due diligence with Getafe, and as I sit here now on the 26th of September recording this, that may or may not happen. But it did spark an interesting debate, and I've seen polls across different platforms, Reddit, obviously on our channel on YouTube, and many others talking about whether this is a good or a bad thing. So ourselves and our friends at ChatGPT decided to take a bit of a deep dive and look at some of the pros and cons to this. I would, of course, love your thoughts and let me know how you're feeling in the comment section. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. But I hope to give you a better understanding of what it will be like for and against the idea of a multi-club model. So we're going to start off by looking on the bright side of life and looking at the positives. So some of the positives to having a multi-club model are player development pathway and a stepping stone opportunity. Nothing unique there. You know, you bring in a player, let's say from South America, send them into play in La Liga there, in this case with Getafe. If they shine and if they adapt, then you think, right, are they ready for the next step? Can Liverpool then go and buy them from Getafe? So it gives you that stepping stone and a pathway for opportunities. Young players or fringe talents at Liverpool could be sent to Getafe or other clubs in this instance to gain regular first team minutes in a competitive league. And if it looks as if I'm reading from notes in this video, by the way, I am. Very, very rarely I use them. Usually, if I'm doing an opinion piece like this, I just talk from the heart and off the cuff. But I wanted to really do a bit of work on this one to make sure that I could give you as many points as possible. So, like we've said, fringe players, young players, it gives Liverpool the opportunity to send them out to a club that will play in the same type of philosophy and way that Liverpool are. You know, sending players to the Championship or other leagues, it's great, but unless the club is suited to the way that we play as well, it can also have an adverse effect or no impact. So it helps bridge the gap between the academy, under 23 and full-time Premier League level as well, especially for foreign recruits adjusting to European football. Another point is better control over the environment, coaching, playing style compared to ad hoc loans like I've just mentioned. You know that if you send a player to a club that's part of your multi-club model system, they're going to be trained in the Liverpool way, the way that is, or the FSG way, whichever way you want to look at it. So again, just similar philosophies there. One of the questions that gets asked most when we talk about sporting directors are, what are their jobs? One of the main things for a sporting director in, you know, the nouveau age of football is to have that consistency of ethos throughout all levels of the club, even if a coach changes. The idea is that Liverpool play the same way from the under 15s, 16s, 18s, 19s, 21s, 23s or whatever, all the way to the first team. And the sporting director sets that philosophy. So if a manager needs to be replaced, like in Jurgen's case, you bring in somebody similar, like Arne Slot, to fit the mould, and it would, again, then translate back through all the age groups. It also allows riskier signings, this multi-club model, talent, but unproven talent, to be tested in a lower stakes environment. So rather than Liverpool having to roll the dice on a player, let's talk about Giovanni Leone here as an example. I'm sure that Liverpool would have loved to have been able to buy him, but send him over to Getafe to play a full season, week in, week out in La Liga, gaining valuable experience. That is another benefit of this system. A scouting network, analytics, data and player databases across multiple clubs and multiple different environments. So of course giving the club a greater, bigger picture. Easier to spot talent in markets, Spain, Latin America, etc. and place them at the right club for development. Another pro. Leverage economies of scale, same staff, systems, methodologies across multiple competitions and clubs. So again, financially there's a bit of a benefit to that too. Market expansion and commercial growth. So I've said to you guys before, collective bargaining rights, that kind of thing. So if Liverpool or FSG had 5 football clubs, well, you could go to the likes of Adidas and say, well, we can have Adidas range right throughout the pyramid of FSG clubs. Increase the group's footprint in new markets, Spain and Latin America. Attract sponsors and commercial partners interested in multi-territory exposure, which is again another point. You're not just bringing in to England, you're going to England, to Spain, maybe to Brazil or wherever else you have clubs, giving brands a wider scope to reach into markets. Cross-promotion and merchandising opportunities across multiple clubs. Risk diversification and asset growth, of course, is another one. Owning multiple clubs spreads risk. If one club suffers relegation, the group still has other assets. Now, of course, we'd never want the club to get relegated in any of these scenarios. Potential capital appreciation, buying a mid-tier club and improving it could lead to a profitable exit or increase its valuation. These are things that are probably more towards the owners than us as fans. Style and consistency across all the clubs. The group can implement a unified football philosophy, playing similar styles across the clubs, making transitions smoother for players. Easy to coordinate loan moves, tactical alignment, coaching standards, etc. Also this, sharing back office functions, finance, legal, marketing, reduced duplicated costs. Better use of data, technology and centralised resources saves money in the long run. So that's where we're at with the pros of it. And for what it's worth, I think it is a good thing if FSG are to have a multi-club model. I understand and appreciate that people are against it, and we'll go through some of those reasons now. But I think the direction and the way football is going, it's either do it or be left behind. So I'd rather we do it. But let's now move on to some of the cons, the against argument. Fan backlash and perception of being a feeder club. That is, of course, something that you've seen with Salzburg as an example. Their fans angry. They think the best talent gets taken out of the Austrian division and sent to Leipzig or other Red Bull clubs. Supporters of the smaller club, which in this instance will be Getafe, may feel they become a second-class side whose priority is to develop talent for Liverpool rather than their own success, which again is understandable. Local identity, pride, tradition could be undermined or diluted by external ownership. Accusations of a lack of commitment to the club if funds are diverted to the flagship. Now, that is probably not going to happen. We know the way FSG run their clubs, that each club is its own entity and spends its own money. I've often seen this argument about the Red Sox and Liverpool back and forth. The two things are separate entities and one set of finances don't impact the other. UEFA and domestic rules may restrict two clubs under common ownership from competing in the same competition. Conflict of interest or regulatory constraints. This is something we've already seen. It's come to bite Crystal Palace in the backside. Obviously, they were put down to the Europa Conference League because of that conflict of interest that UEFA deemed to be there with their ownership group. Sporting integrity questions and matches involving two clubs in the same group or competition. How do you guarantee fairness is another one. That doesn't really apply too much here because respectfully, I don't see ourselves in Getafe as an example being in the same competition, even if it is in Europe, because I don't think they're going to be in the Champions League and that's where we think we belong. Conflict when the two clubs need the same player or when the resource allocation decisions affect one club over another. Resource dilution and management complexity is another con. The parent company, Liverpool/FSG, may spread their attention, capital and personnel too thinly across all clubs. And for me, this is probably the biggest argument against the brain drain. Do the best of what we have currently at Liverpool, the Richard Hughes, the Michael Edwards, do they get spread too thinly trying to sort out situations at 2, 3, 4 clubs? Logistical challenges, language, culture, regulations, local bureaucracy increases the complexity. Difficulties in maintaining high standards in coaching, infrastructure and performance in multiple locations. Spanish La Liga, UEFA legal constraints on acquisitions, cross-ownership rules, financial fair play constraints. Potential for intervention by governing bodies if misuse is suspected. Compliance with multiple jurisdictions, labour, tax laws, etc. These are all things that make it a bit more of a headache, as we said. Intra-club competition. Competition for the same player markets. Two clubs might target the same player. Not really likely to happen in this case. Reputational risk. That is one certainly worth considering. If one club underperforms or suffers a scandal or mismanages, it reflects the entire group as a whole and shines a poor light on them, which is a very fair point. Accusations of pursuing profit over sporting merit may erode goodwill amongst fans, media or institutions. Could fuel narratives of corporatization of football, losing some of the romanticism and authenticity. And look, I think that's already happened. I think that ship has sailed to a certain extent. It is now a very commercialised business, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. Unequal prioritisation or moral hazard and risk that some clubs farm teams with limited ability to compete on their own. So there are some of the negatives around multi-club models. So look, I've tried my best, along with our friends at ChatGPT there, to give you both sides of this debate. We've run a poll on our channel and more people say that they would like a multi-club model than they wouldn't. But like I've said, I've seen polls on other outlets that have gone the other direction. So do let me know in the comments what you think. Would you like Liverpool to be part of a multi-club system with FSG, like Manchester City have with the City Group, like Red Bull have with their group of clubs? Or would you like us to just stay as we are? Owners fully focused on us from a footballing perspective. Let me know in the comments. I hope to be back. See you guys soon. As you know, I'm currently away. So appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you can, let me know your thoughts. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.